Reaper's recording, the Nikon's recording, the Sony's recording. What's happening, Boot Junkies? Mike Dog Audio here, back with another video on home studio setup for voiceover. I'm going to look this way because the microphone's right here. And we're going to add another microphone to our budget series. This one is another one that's provided by the good folks over at Aokeo. They saw my last one and they asked me if I wanted to try a USB microphone, so I thought I'd give it a try. This one is the Aokeo AK-6 USB microphone. And it comes as a little kit. And so what you get in the kit is you get a pair of earbuds. You get a small microphone, sort of a mini microphone stand, and you get a USB cable that allows you to connect it to the computer itself. Now, I checked on the price on Amazon, and when I last checked on Amazon, the price was $39. $38.99 is the current going price for this microphone kit. And I'm just going to talk for a little while, let you hear it. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of the microphones and some of the things I've discovered. I've only had the microphone for about a day, so I don't have a ton of experience with it, but I've got some observations that I think are worth talking about. The first thing is, let's talk about what it says here on the Amazon page. The first thing, and I'm going to go with this is a new description, and maybe it's not correct. I can't tell if Aokeo is the actual company that uploaded this description, but there's there's one weird thing about this that I want to make clear based on what I've been able to figure out. The first thing is it says it is a stereoscopic microphone. And so I'm not sure what they mean by stereoscopic in this particular case, because when I'm looking at it in Reaper, it is very clearly a mono microphone. There's only one channel that's enabled on the microphone. And so to call it stereoscopic, that's got to be a typo. That's got to be a bad description. I can't determine that this is a stereo microphone in any way. So take that for what it's worth. But that out of the way, let's talk about some of the features of this microphone. The first thing, and I'm going to pick this up, and sorry, throughout this you may hear some handling noise, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. But let's first talk about what this microphone has. So on the user interface, sort of the input controls, the buttons that you touch on this microphone, you have 4 controls. The first one is a headphone jack, and that is actually allows for zero latency monitoring. So when you have the headphone plugged in, you can hear yourself, no latency, no delay, nothing like that. So that is actually really helpful when you're trying to record yourself. There are 2 knobs here. The lower one is a volume, and that does both adjusts the volume in your headphones, and it adjusts the volume of the recording itself. So you get both. So it's also a gain control. And then on the bottom, there's a button. It's a little bit of a weird one. I'm going to plug my headphones in for this. So on the bottom, there's a button that has 2 microphone symbols. So there's there's a microphone, and then there's a microphone with a slash through it. And normally you'd think that that's like a microphone mute. And when I press it and the button goes out, I don't hear anything in my headphones anymore. But I can see that it is still recording, and actually it's hotter. So the microphone itself is still hot. So when I talk into the sensitive side of the microphone, it got louder, but I don't hear anything in the headphones. So this, but when I push it back in, I get the monitoring in my headphones again, but the signal goes down. So it's both a headphone mute and a dim or a cut or a pad. So it pads the microphone a little bit, but I actually think that the way you would normally use this microphone is with monitoring turned on, so you'd have the pad engaged, so the microphone itself actually gets a bit quieter. But when you take it out, so I don't hear anything in the monitoring anymore, the button is pressed, but it got louder. I'm not sure what the design decision is for that. If that's a wiring thing, I honestly don't know. It's a very strange decision. it's not a microphone mute. Regardless of what it says, it's not a microphone mute. If you press that button and you can't hear yourself, everybody else can still hear you. So it's not a mute. And then it's got this great thing. This one, plug my headphones back in so I can hear it. It does have an echo. So when you turn up the echo, it actually creates an echo effect in here. So I think that's more for, it says it's a singing microphone, so you can add some echo to your singing. It adds a little bit of flattering effect to your voice. Not that I'd ever use it for voiceover, but hey, you might want to have, it's like a free VST, an echo VST built in. And the knob is how much echo you hear. And if you turn it all the way down, it disappears. So that's the microphone itself. But so I'm going to turn it back on so I can hear myself. So it got a little quieter. The pattern of this microphone, near as I can figure, this is either a supercardioid microphone or it's a figure 8 microphone. So a supercardioid, you know from maybe watching my other videos, a supercardioid has a narrow lobe of sensitivity in the front. It is very insensitive from the side. So as I talk into the side of the microphone, you see it's much quieter. And then supercardioids have a very narrow lobe of sensitivity in the back. So there's a little tiny bit of sensitivity right in the back. Now, a figure 8 microphone has almost an equal amount of sensitivity from the front and the back, and it rejects from the side. So this could be, edging towards the figure 8 pattern. And when I turn off the headphone monitoring, so I just press the button, I can see that the microphone, I can see by the waveform in Reaper that this is actually very sensitive from the back. So it could be a figure 8. It could be a supercardioid or a hypercardioid microphone. So I'm pushing the button back in so I can hear myself. So there's a couple of weird sort of, I'll be honest, a couple of weird persnickety things about this microphone. But it's a $38 microphone. And from what I can tell with the pad engaged, it actually sounds pretty good. Talking about the sound right off the bat, the sound of it does have, it does seem to have a natural bit of bass roll off, so it doesn't seem to be terribly sensitive to the bass frequencies. So as I get closer, the proximity effect, there doesn't seem to be that strong bass coupling in my voice to the microphone. Let me disengage the monitoring here. So we can also hear it with it disengaged. As I get very close to the microphone, it still doesn't seem, based on what I'm able to tell, it doesn't seem super bassy, not as much as some of other microphones. So under normal circumstances, that'd be considered very good. It doesn't suffer a lot from proximity effect, but it also means you can't make your voice sound artificially bassy or boomy or anything like that. So I turned the monitoring back on so I could hear it. But that is what it is. Take it for however it works for you. Now, I will also say that the microphone itself, the kit, doesn't come with a shock mount. It just comes with this stand and the little mini tripod here. The tripod itself is made of metal, but it's small. I think it's made to be used at sort of desk length, so you'd have it away. But because it doesn't have a shock mount, it is extremely microphonic in the sense that it's not just hearing my voice, but it's picking up the knocks and things from the desk. So you have to be careful with it. I would strongly encourage you, if you do go with this mic, you might want to consider getting a scissor arm or a shock mount so that you can decouple the microphone from the desk. I'll do my best to not knock the microphone. I know I knock the microphone all the time, but I'm going to try not to knock the microphone and try and minimize the amount of noise I introduce into the microphone. I'm sorry, you're probably going to end up hearing it just as I interact with the space here. So that is what the microphone. Those are some of the aspects of the microphone that you're going to encounter with an inexpensive microphone, right? They don't give you a shock mount because it's a full USB. It's got an interface. It's a sound card. It's everything. They give you these earbuds. They shouldn't. The earbuds are actually kind of terrible. I can hear myself, but it really is a not particularly flattering representation of the microphone. It actually sounds like these headphones, these earbuds, they sound like the ones you get on the airplane for free, like the $1 ones. That's probably what they are. If you've got a pair of like Apple earbuds or a pair of headphones, they're going to serve this microphone a whole lot better than these. But they're good because they're small, they fit in your ear, they're not going to feed back into the microphone or anything like that. So there is that. Now, as I said, this is it's a USB microphone, which means it's got all of the stuff you need. It's an interface and it's a sound card, so it's got all the stuff built into it. When I play things back in Reaper, I do hear it through this headphone jack, so you can hear it. But in the sound aspect. So I'm not terribly familiar with Windows, but I'll show you how it looks on a Mac. But when you go into when you go into sound devices on the Mac, it shows up as not an Aokeo AK-6. I think there's probably a bad firmware or something on this particular microphone. Maybe this is because it's new. I don't know. But the device shows up as a TYV 123456AA. I don't know what that is, but I just sort of discovered it when I was looking for this microphone. But that's the way it shows up. Now, it does show that on this microphone, I can adjust the gain in software. I haven't noticed that it actually does anything to adjust the gain in software, but that might be because I've been recording into Reaper, and Reaper generally, holds control over those things. So it could be separated from it. I don't know. And on Windows, I don't have that Windows PC with me right now because I borrowed it, so I don't know how this thing would work on Windows. I would presume it's going to work like any other sound card in Windows, so you can probably adjust the gain. But I don't have Windows to test. Sorry. But remember, when you're looking at your device, it might not be called the Aokeo AK-6. It might have this other weird firmware name, TYV 123456AA, for whatever that's worth. Okay, so when would you use this microphone? So they use it as they label it as a podcasting or a VoIP microphone, and I think that's actually sort of the sweet spot for this microphone. I would definitely use this one as a VoIP microphone, so Skype, Google Hangouts or anything like that. I do a lot of talking over the computer to other people, so I could definitely see this being a microphone for that situation. If the sound of the microphone is not hypercritical, then this microphone would be great. I'm not going to go recording radio or TV advertisements with this microphone, but for putting my voice into my YouTube channel, for streaming over my Twitch channel, for getting my voice into the computer much better than the onboard microphones of the computer, I actually think that this is quite a reasonable option at its price point. It's not perfect, right? We know that you got to get a shock mount for it. We know that it's got some weird things in the display that we have to figure out, and it's got that weird pad switch that cuts out the headphones. So yeah, there's a little bit of weirdness to it. But at $38, maybe you're willing to overcome it. That's for you to decide. I'm not going to make a judgment for how whether you should or shouldn't buy it. I'm just trying to give you my impressions of it. The last thing I will say is the one thing about the pattern that I really like of the super and hypercardioid patterns, which I believe this microphone is its noise rejection. And you have to decide, can you hear this laptop that's right next to it? Because I tell you what, it's recording QuickTime, it's doing Reaper, it's internalizing all the sound, and the fans are actually blowing pretty hard. So listen. Right? Computer's blowing like a jet. This is an old 2012 Mac MacBook Pro, and it's blowing like crazy. It's working hard right now. But we have the microphone on the insensitive side, so that side it's not particularly sensitive. So even though it's right next to these fans that are blowing like a jet, can you hear it? I don't hear it that much. And so that's the beauty of a pattern like this and having this. So if I'm got my microphone here and I'm having a conversation and I'm talking over VoIP with somebody, then that's a really good option. So even if my fans are blowing like crazy, it's not terribly sensitive to it. So I think that's the advantage of a pattern like this. If that noise was right directly behind it, if I have the microphone pointed down, even that insensitive side, that lobe of sensitivity from the back, if that's pointed down towards the sound, you'll hear it. But if you place that noise in the dead spot of the microphone off to the side, then it really can make a huge difference. So there you have it. That is the AK-6 microphone from Aokeo, USB microphone. So you can decide at $38, is that worthwhile? It certainly might be for you. But now you've gotten a chance to hear it. You've gotten to see the interface. You've gotten to see sort of the idiosyncrasies of the mic, and it's for you to decide if that's something that you want. I'll put a link to it on Amazon. If you do think you want to buy it, just follow that link, and I'll get you to the right page. Anyway, so that's it. So go get a microphone and record something amazing.